Hi, it's Martin from the Accelerator team, and I'm here again with Jack Spoor from the Accelerator team. Hi, Jack.
Hello, hello.
We're here to talk about R&D tax credits again, and we've done an episode already. Click the link below to see it, on the types of things that are included within R&D, the type of people who can claim. But I thought it was worth just touching on a couple of things, Jack, because we're seeing a possible change coming with Hmrc and a recent announcement they've made. Is it worth just covering off what Hmrc have done?
Yeah, and I mean it's a surprise because it's kind of something that I already thought was in place, but the fact that they've made an announcement suggests that there's obviously some change happening internally. They've essentially said that they've paused payment on a number of R&D claims in order for them to fully investigate some suspicious activity that's happened. They're saying it's not going to affect the vast majority of claims that go through, but obviously if there's a case where your claim hasn't come through, they're telling you not to chase it and just to keep an eye on your online account. So again, speaking to your agent for corporation tax, they'll be able to keep you posted on any changes that happen. Yeah. So it's an interesting announcement. There's obviously some kind of mindset change happening.
It's kind of announcing something that everyone always presumed was there.
Yeah.
That they wouldn't pay out spurious claims.
Yeah, it's funny that.
So yeah, it might be an indicator that there's a rule change coming, a change of practice, change of approach.
There's certainly a lot of. They've taken a consultation out recently, which I think has been closed, and they're definitely thinking about R&D tax credits. There's a few ideas being knocked around. So yeah, this could be a precursor to some more firm announcements happening going forward, probably. So
we thought it was worth doing an episode then on. We've covered what you can claim. We're now going to cover, because there's a lot of myths out there in the market, isn't there?
Yeah.
And I suppose the reason we're doing this is a lot of people, first of all, think this is a regulated market in some way.
Yeah, I mean, your normal first interaction with it, and for a lot of people, is that someone calls you up, you're cold called, they say they're an R&D specialist, and you take them at their word. You assume people probably, you can't blame them, but they don't go off and do their research into it. They might have a look at a website and go, all right, yeah, they exist.
They've got a nice website.
Yeah,
they seem to know what they're talking about.
And they assume, well, it's linked to tax, it's linked to accountancy, they must be regulated by somebody like the ICAEW, the ACCA, someone like that. But in reality, it's a completely unregulated market, and anyone off the street can decide, I fancy being an R&D tax advisor.
I'll have a website and I'll start pitching. And there's a reason why this kind of market attracts that. It's because there's a lot of the fees, a lot of the pricing structures are based on success, aren't they?
Yeah, it's a success rate. Generally, they might go down the no-win, no-fee route, but they're normally asking somewhere between 5 and 35% of any tax that they can recover for you. So it's got a big carrot attached to it. So
if you're a struggling R&D advisor and you can get 35% of someone's tax refund, it's directly in their interest to get that refund as big as possible.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And to accept a claim rather than reject a claim. A customer, because the Hmrc are the ultimate people that accept or reject. But again, there's probably a bit of misunderstanding there. I know in all the years I've worked in tax, a lot of people think if they send their tax return in and don't hear anything, that means it's been approved. Whereas the reality is, they're not looked at as a normal part of the process. It's only if Hmrc decide to look at, they've got the right to then inquire. Yeah. They don't actually approve anything, do they?
No, it doesn't go across anyone's desk in all reality, unless they're processing a payment, in which case they're not then they may see that there might be something attached, but there's nobody reading any of the supporting information you submit.
Which is part of the problem here. That's a tempting structure to work within if you're trying to just chase people's money, isn't it?
Yeah, and it becomes a hell of a lot easier because the turnaround time's quicker. So the client's happier. They're like, "Wow, we got that out."
They'll recommend all their mates for the same dodgy claims.
Yeah, definitely.
So it's worth saying though that we are accountants. We are regulated. We are overseen by the Institute of Chartered Accountants England and Wales. I'm a tax advisor, so the Chartered Institute of Tax. We've got other professional bodies, but anybody can say they are an accountant, say they're a tax advisor. That itself isn't a regulated or a protected trade. It's not like pretending to be a police officer. You get wrong for doing that. You can pretend to be an accountant, you can pretend to be a tax advisor. So I think that's part of the problem. So what we've done is we've pulled together 7 areas where people just keep getting this wrong. Because you face this, people ring out and go, why didn't you tell me about that? It's because it's wrong. And we haven't got time to tell everyone everything that's wrong. So here's a video with 7 things that people just keep getting wrong on R&D.
Yes.
Where do you want to start then, Jack?
I suppose the first thing is, for me, is that an advisor shouldn't be telling you how big your claim is. So a number of people that I've spoken to, either prospects or clients, have said, well, I've had someone on the phone and the conversation's gone something like, well, according to our records, or we know people within our industry who have reclaimed X thousand pounds. And the best case scenario there is that then they actually look into your numbers and go, actually, maybe your claim's this big. But worst case scenario is that you'll hear X thousands of pounds, £40,000. You go, brilliant. They'll put a claim in for £40,000. They haven't even looked at your information. So it's just a bit puzzling that people just assume that there's this database or something where these people are tapping into and going, this is how much you can claim back. Yeah. But in reality...
So the impression given there is they're doing some kind of benchmark and having looked at you, see where you are in this benchmarking process. But other than say, well, you've got a team of 10 people and you do this, that doesn't tell anything, does it?
Yeah.
If you're comparing against the southern firm compared to northern, your wages are a third of the cost. Instantly, that's one of your biggest expenses. So it's impossible to tell, isn't it?
Yeah, they're assuming they've done some due diligence, but in reality, they've probably looked at Companies House, where if you're a small company, there's only a balance sheet on there. They might give the average number of employees, but it doesn't tell you how you're structured. If you've got an R&D department, it doesn't tell you what costs they are.
How much time you're spending on R&D.
Yeah, it's a completely bespoke approach for every individual. There may be industries where R&D is more prevalent, but every individual firm within that industry may be operating differently. It's all down to like mindset of generally like the senior management or the owners who actually think how important R&D is generally. So you can't just put everyone into one box, and even probably...
Because you could be the biggest, best widget maker in the country, but if you're not innovating in anywhere in that, you're not defining new processes or anything, it's like, well, it doesn't matter, you've got no R&D.
Yeah.
So this straight comparison is just, well, it's rubbish, isn't it? Yeah,
it's all within the where you are in your lifestyle of your product. If you're trying to create something new, then there's probably going to be some R&D, but there may be someone who's done all that R&D 10 years ago and is dining out on something that's still relatively popular in the market. So it's a bit of a myth. Well, it's a total myth where people can just put you within an industry kind of standard, put you into... Some of them may have spreadsheets where they go, well, on average, your industry claims 25% of their time on
But you
R&D.
may be the 1%.
Yeah.
Or the 50%, again.
Or 90%, 80%, whatever. But when it's generally a red flag if they get you to just fill out a spreadsheet, or if they tell you how much your claim is at the outset without even looking at
doing any work. Okay then, what's the second area where you see this?
Second one's almost the other way. It's where potentially these less regular, the less people that keep their fingers on the pulse, advisors, those sort of people may not be actually aware of a recent change that's happened, where hosted costs, so generally involved with having like a cloud-based IT solution, those costs associated with R&D are actually allowable, when historically they may not be built into their spreadsheets because they haven't checked what the recent rules are, or that may be the one rule that they go, remember from 2 years ago when they last picked up the guidance, when actually no, you can't claim that. So then someone might ask the question now and go, well, how about these hosted costs? I go, oh no, they're not allowed, but actually they are.
So you've got two things there then. So the first one was people just trying to blag you into a big claim.
Yeah.
And on the reverse there, you've actually got possibly a well-meaning incumbent advisor advising on multiple things, who then doesn't know enough about R&D, who just says, don't bother, you're wasting your time.
Yeah.
So you've actually got some people claiming stuff they shouldn't. And on the other hand, you've got people missing out on a potential claim.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or a much smaller claim than it should be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's really important because, the software development is obviously a big industry for R&D, and more of the R&D that they're doing is related to cloud-based software, where they're going to have to require some kind of, hosted solution. Yeah,
they're going to be paying Amazon or Microsoft or Google, someone for all of this space to do their work on, aren't they?
But it's important that also we don't go too far the other way when they go, oh, hosted costs allowed, I'm going to have all of my hosted on there. So existing applications.
It's not your Zoom license, your MS 365. It's not everything, is it? Yeah.
No, not at all.
It's not old software.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So obviously important to caveat that as well.
Yeah. But again, this is part of the detail, isn't it? It's like if I just said, software, is that in? The question is, depends what kind of software. Okay.
That's always the answer. And obviously you're a tax
The answer to
expert,
everything
so
is depends. Yeah. What's your third thing then, Jack?
So third thing's to do with state aid rules. So the state aid rules for R&D purposes kind of related to the EU, and to prevent kind of member states getting competitive advantage over one another between the different countries.
So it's to stop, unfair subsidising of certain areas, etc.
Mm-hmm. So R&D, before Brexit, R&D is considered a notified state aid, so you can't get any additional state aid on top of that.
So this came in if you're trying to get like grant funding through a lot of the local grant providers. Like there was a maximum amount of state aid you were allowed, and R&D was classed as.
Yes.
So it was often a conflict, wasn't there? You could do one, but it stopped you doing other things.
Yeah, so if you already had that grant funding in place, then it affected which R&D scheme you could claim under. And that's always something that I've found when I've picked up historic claims that hasn't always been picked up on. But also I've spoken to a couple of clients and who are aware of the state aid rules, but they go, but Brexit happened, so surely these EU rules don't apply to us anymore. And hence, like, they're suddenly claiming stuff under the SME scheme when they should still be claiming under
but
the
a lot of the old EU legislation is still just there, isn't it? It hasn't all been undone or unpicked as yet,
Yeah,
has
absolutely. I mean, I assume when I mention this consultation, that may be one of the things that's going to happen. But for the time being, although Brexit happened, like these EU state aid rules are still very much in place.
So we've had people who knew they couldn't claim because of this conflict, who've then just presumed as of whenever it was 2019, well, that's it, we'll start claiming again. Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah. So just watch out for that as well.
Okay then, what was that, 3? Are we on 4?
We're on 4, yeah. So the fourth one is another kind of niche area in terms of qualifying costs, and that relates to travel costs. So again, a less scrupulous advisor will just say, put all of your travel costs through because they qualify as an R&D cost. That's not always the case.
Right, okay.
First of all, it has to relate to R&D. So it has to be somebody who actually does R&D for the company actually has to...
You can't just take your motor running expenses from your profit and loss and just go, travel's in.
Yeah. Or they're putting their...
Which again, you'd be tempted to do if you're getting a percentage of that, wouldn't you?
Yeah. So, or if the directors go to a trade show, or let's face it, some of them may even go on holiday and put their flights through. Obviously, that stuff's not allowed anyway.
That's not R&D. No matter how many pints of San Miguel you drink.
It's all about product testing. But these actually need to be reimbursed travel costs. So these need to be incurred at the point where by a competent professional within the business. So they basically thought, I need to go here in order to do an R&D specific activity. Yeah. And I'm going to pay out for it and get reimbursed by the company.
So you might get the train down to, say, a supplier in Milton Keynes, purposely going to get a new material to help you build a prototype. Yeah. Sounds like some of that would be in.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
No, that is
but just going to a trade fair at the Excel, maybe not, unless you could directly link it to what you do.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah, and it's quite interesting because it becomes a tax planning point at that point. After people have found out this kind of little unique loophole. So they go, well, actually, now we need to put a process in place to ensure that we can capture these costs and make them qualifying. Yeah. Because, I think people took a lot of pride when they finally got, we've got a company credit card now, so you can pay stuff on there and we don't have to worry about getting expense claims and stuff. But actually, for R&D purposes, it's actually quite useful to have expense claims.
All right. So actually, you did say there if it's reimbursed, does it have to be like actually reimbursed to an employee? It can't just be the company has sent you off there. Yeah. So it can't be paid on a company credit card. Or paid out the company account. So it has to be reimbursed. That's a key part of the thing, then, isn't it? Yeah. So it's a strange one, and I've had. It feels like a glitch in the system rather than by design, doesn't it?
I think it's to kind of take the decision process about qualifying and non-qualifying away from the people who might benefit most from it. So a director, for example, will be like, well, if I knew all travel costs are qualifying, then everything's going to be R&D. But if it actually relates to somebody who does R&D within the business, they're incurring a cost, then it's more than likely that it actually relates to R&D.
I know what you mean, yeah. Okay then.
That's the best reason. I mean, I can't think of any... I'm not aware of the actual justification.
Or it was an oversight when they were drafting the legislation. It was just bad, which does happen. Bad legislation happen, but you've still got to know and follow the rules. Yeah. Okay, then so that's 4. What's number 5?
So number 5 is another interesting one, and it's about apportionment of costs. So generally I have a conversation with clients, and they may be using like a third-party developer or something who's working on something that does qualify for R&D, but obviously the scope of their project isn't always fall within R&D. There's going to be elements of it which are kind of cosmetic. So like if they're building a bespoke bit of e-commerce software into their like website, for example, they're probably designing the website as well.
But yeah, the logo design's not R&D, is it?
Yeah, exactly. So they may have a £12,000 invoice and be, oh brilliant, we'll put that £12,000 through.
They did that cool new website.
Yeah.
But the cool bit might be the tech, or it could just be how it looks. Yeah.
So at that point, that's when you need to really drill down and go, can I actually see your proposal? Can I see how they've structured the pricing on here? So that actually go, well, sorry, that £12,000 invoice, only £4,000 of that relates to our qualifying R&D activity.
Yeah. And actually, I think a lot of suppliers, if they're smart, are probably abusing that fact and going, well, it's R&D, isn't it? You're getting this money back.
Absolutely.
And I know some businesses, well, I've looked at people in the past, they'll say, well, that's okay, it's allowable, isn't it, for tax? Like, yeah, but you've still got to spend the money. Mm-hmm. Don't spend the money if you don't need to. So don't pay an inflated bill thinking it's R&D. Exactly. You're still better off not paying the damn thing in the first place, aren't you?
And then similarly on the other side is that when people are using job costing software, and again a specific project within that software has been identified as R&D, they'll go, all right, well, here's all the job costs. And it's just like, okay, yeah, fair enough, some of these are R&D costs, like, but these labour costs, like how much of it was R&D and how much it was actually just installing the thing, because that's not R&D.
Yeah. Right.
How much of that is like checking on it afterwards, the aftercare service?
So do a lot of people make the mistake here then? It sounds like, Dave does all the R&D with Betty, right? Well, anything they do is R&D then. It's not that, is it?
Yeah. And
it's how much of their actual time was on R&D as well.
Yeah, and I think I haven't actually put this down, so it might be a little bonus myth for you, but
myth, I like it.
100 people can claim time for 100% of their time is fully chargeable for R&D. It's just not realistic.
Yeah, no one's ever just doing R&D, are they?
Yeah, I mean, there may be an R&D manager, they may have R&D in their title, there may be the vast majority of their time may be on R&D, which is I don't dispute. However, within that time, there's obviously going to be downtime within there, like making a cup of tea. Like Hmrc can be quite scrupulous about this stuff. Like,
so unless you're an absolute slave driver, you're not getting 8 hours a day off someone, are you?
Yeah. So you need to factor that in. There's going to be downtime, as I said. There's going to be admin stuff that doesn't qualify. So it's always thinking about if you're proportioning something, you've got to reflect that. So
because I think if you try anything at 100%, most things are not absolute. Mm-hmm. Whereas if it was 95, they may go hard worker. Yeah. Well, that's fine. But if Hmrc say 100%, they're going to look at that, aren't they?
Yeah.
If they do look at it.
I think it's quite similar to like the pool car argument that a lot of people use. But yeah, this is always 100% available. Like, no, it isn't.
Yeah, there's always someone got it at home, isn't there?
Yeah, exactly.
Pool cars to be covered in another episode.
Yeah, sorry,
in case you're wondering, in case you're wondering what the hell we're talking about. Right, okay then, so what, we've had 4 plus a bonus.
Well, 5 plus a bonus.
5 plus a bonus. Yeah. What's the next one?
Actually, it follows on quite well from the previous point. It's in relation to subcontractors. It's that people generally think, on the whole, is that subcontractors are cheaper because I'm not paying NI, pension contributions on that. And obviously I'm getting the same R&D relief as I would if I had an employee, but that's not the case.
Right, okay.
I mean, first of all, obviously the employer's NI and the employer's pension contribution element of an employee is allowable for R&D. So it's not just their gross wage that you can take.
Yeah.
Secondly, when you're using an unconnected subcontractor, you have to restrict, for R&D purposes, that value down by 65%.
Right.
So if you had
so if you're paying Dave $1,000 a week and Betty is $1,000 a week but a subby, so Dave's grand gets grossed up, it's actually 1,300 quid or what, 1,200 quid or whatever, 1,300 quid, you get that. Betty's grand is actually discounted?
Yeah, down to 650, and then you uplift that by the 130% if you're using the SME scheme. So
you're getting quite a lot less there, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
So you're saving a bit of NI and pension, etc., and a bit of holiday, but you're actually losing quite a bit of money.
So you need to take a holistic view on whether...
Or you're better off just getting someone on board to do it. Yeah.
And then especially with the the other recent change which happened in April as well is that they put in the R&D cap as well, which essentially caps any claim for an SME at £20,000 plus 3 times their total pay-as-you-earn liability for the year.
So it might be a double whammy there. You can only claim 65% of Betty.
Yeah.
If she'd been on the payroll, you would get all of it. Sorry, not 100, but you'd get you wouldn't discount it.
Mm-hmm.
And also that would count towards this payroll cost, which is now part of the cap.
Yeah, so if you spent 100 grand on R&D subcontractors, you're expecting with everything else being equal, and you're expecting a nice tax rebate. You might suddenly find that you're only getting 20 grand back rather than 40, 60, because it
was discounted and you haven't got a payroll to get you above that 20 grand cap.
Exactly.
Yeah, right, okay then. That's
so
interesting.
it's, as I said, it's really important to kind of take a holistic view on whether having a subcontractor is actually beneficial for you, or actually bringing them onto the payroll will provide that additional tax benefit for you.
Because you're now in the territory where things are almost even. If you're going to get this R&D, it's maybe worth just taking that little bit of extra strain and getting someone on the books, because it just is a significantly better payout under R&D.
Yeah, and I suppose there are other factors at play here in terms of, is this R&D something that's going to happen on an ongoing basis? Is it a one-off project?
Oh yeah, I mean, if you just need a month worth of labour, you wouldn't take someone on for it. But yeah. But again, if it was an even comparison between Dave and Betty here, and you're going to need them year after year, then the person on the payroll might be a better option.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
that is the case.
Okay, then what's your last one then?
Final one, and this is always always a doozy when you're talking to clients about it, is that just because a project involves either science or technology doesn't mean it guaranteedly absolutely qualifies for R&D. So that, in terms of science and technology, is important because that's one of the criteria for R&D. There has to be an advance in science and technology.
Yeah.
But just because you're doing something that involves science and technology doesn't mean it's R&D. So I think
so the classic here is someone's implementing a new bit of software.
Yeah.
They're just installing software. They're not doing anything fancy. It's just new to them. It's technology new to them. Yeah. That's not R&D, is it?
Yeah, if they're trying, because there's a lot of great softwares out there at the moment which allow you to customize stuff within it to make it fit within your existing processes or help you develop new processes. However, if you're still just using the functionality within the software, that's not R&D, I'm afraid.
Yeah. If it's off the shelf, no matter how much you tailor it, unless you're literally reprogramming it or making it speak to software that it's never spoke to. But if all you're doing is downloading a bit of software and connect it through Zapier to your email or whatever, that's not R&D, is it?
Yeah, if there's existing like APIs involved, even like integrating stuff isn't allowable.
Because someone's already done the work, haven't they?
Yeah, exactly. It's not, you can't recreate work, you can't, well, even within that software example where you're creating different templates or using existing templates, there's nothing there.
And it's funny because on a very basic level, this is a bit like a carpenter saying, well, I'm using somebody else's wood, I'm making a different shape though. It's like, well, hold on, no, you're still just, someone already came up with the idea of using wood to build things. Yeah. You can't just say, well, I'm building a different shaped chair.
Yeah.
Which it sounds like a silly comparison, but someone just saying, well, I've got some cool software, I'll just tweak it a bit to my version of it. If it's still just within the existing remits. Now, if you're taking wood and you're treating it, or you're doing something that make it unbreakable or impenetrable or waterproof, great. But if you're just taking wood and chopping it into different shapes, what could there possibly be?
Yeah, I mean, that would fall flat on when you start going through the criteria. Yeah. I don't want to go back on that.
We've done that, yeah, we've done that. So I mean, we hear people quite a lot say, well, why, and again, just to recap then, the reason we're doing this is Hmrc have said they're looking at stuff. Yeah. There might be something coming. We don't know. But also, there's a lot of people out there who probably have like a fear of missing out. And we see clients a lot who come to us and go, why did you not tell me about that? Yeah. And the reason is, we didn't tell you because it doesn't apply. It's wrong. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's always a difficult one because I'm very reluctant to pigeonhole R&D into any specific sectors. And I think you need to tread a fine line of thinking outside the box rather than stamping on top of the box.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's always difficult, and it's always very rewarding when when you can actually justify R&D in a sector that you've never done it in before, and it's genuine.
Yeah.
Similarly,
Because we're not saying here they have to be in the science and the technology fields to get R&D. We're not saying that.
No, not at all.
We're just saying using technology in itself isn't enough.
Yeah.
For the last point there, the seventh point. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a very unusual time, because I think officially the government line is that R&D, especially for small business, is criminally underused. But it's the case that
the people who are criminally using it.
Yeah, the right people aren't claiming, but the wrong people are.
Yeah.
So it's a difficult one to do, because if they make the process harder to claim, then it's going to put everyone from claiming it, and they'll be back, where they started 20, 30 years ago. Good.
Okay then, Jack, thank you very much. So there you go, 7 things that people are always getting wrong, 7 myths, plus a bonus one. Don't forget the old sneaky bonus.
We like to throw a free one in as well.
Yeah, we like to make this as unscripted as possible, as you can tell. So if you're thinking about R&D, this video coupled with the one we did on who can claim R&D are probably essential watching. You'll spend an hour of your time, make some notes, and you'll have a much better feel for whether you think you're in or not. If you're still not sure, reach out. Jack and the team will very happily help you. They'll also very happily help you debunk some of the myths in case you think you are missing out. So thanks very much, Jack.
No worries, nice to be back.
Yeah, good to have you back. Until the next episode, thank you.